Hi, it's Ray Grant. It is Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. It's 10:34 p.m. here in Pittsburgh. Tonight I'm going to my intention is to discuss since I talked about the Riverside letters and various messages in the last episode. I'm the next thing that happens basically in the Zodiac Killer walkthrough. I've already talked about the crimes themselves. So the next thing, as far as messages go, are the three Z408 portions. The Zodiac Killer sent a 408 character cipher mailed in three parts on July 31st, 1969, to the Vallejo Times Herald, the San Francisco Examiner, and the San Francisco Chronicle. I will be talking tonight about those letters and the the portions of the cipher and some of the accompanying events that took place as a result of that mailing. One of the first things that people have to understand about Z408, let me write this down here. Zodiac Killer sent Zodiac Killer sent a cover letter, which sent the cipher divided into three parts, and you had Vallejo Times Herald, the San Francisco Examiner, and the San Francisco Chronicle. That was the order of the. Let me make this a little bit darker here. So basically, this is what we're talking about, and we're talking about the portions of the cipher with accompanying cover letters, which were sent to Vallejo Times Herald, San Francisco Examiner, San Francisco Chronicle. Okay, and one of the fundamental things that has to be understood about the about that cipher, which I talked about my original book in 1990, and I remember being threatened by. I was threatened in a personal message on Mike Morford's board. I think it was still a private board at the time I was threatened in January of 2013 by the cryptographer who's mentioned in Dave Aranchek's Let's Crack Zodiac. His Let's Crack Zodiac series. A guy named Brax Cisco, and he went by the. He went. Let me see here. He went by the handle Glurk on the. Let me write this down here, just to illustrate what I'm talking about. I think that's right. I think his name starts with an S and not a C. I could be wrong about that. But it's the cryptographer who was one of the authors of the I think Ural Van Eyck's program was AZ Decrypt, and I believe Braxiska's program was ZK Decrypto. Words to that effect, anyway. And this guy, who is one of the, in other words, he created a program which was the spiritual ancestor to Jarl Van Eyck's program, which deciphered Z340. Okay, and this guy posted on Mike Butterfield's board, and then on Mike Morford's private board, which eventually went public. Although I think his threats to me were made when it was still private. And his handle was Glurk, Glurk, and he used to talk about how he had a framed copy of Z340 on the wall of the vestibule in his house, so that the last thing he saw every day when he walked out his front door, he saw a picture of the of Z340, and the first thing he saw when he came into his house was a picture of Z340. I think he's the one who did that. Anyway, when I was posting on the board, and remember, this is something that I said in my original book in 1990. And so by the time he threatened me on the message board, my claim was already 20. Coincidentally enough, it was 23 years old, or not quite that old, more like 22 years, because my book came out my book was copied at the put together at the Copy Center in August of 1990, and I think I was talking on the message board about it in January 2013, so it's more like 22 years and change. I think that's right. But anyway, the basic fundamental claim about about Z340, about Z408, and what you have to remember is, let me go back with this thing here. There's something you have to understand about the three portions of Z408, which is, okay, we have Z408. There were three identical portions of 136 characters. Okay, each newspaper got 136 characters. And okay, I'll talk about what the police did when they received the cipher. What the police did with it is they had a police artist who was I assume associated with the Vallejo PD. I'm not sure about that. Well, actually, I don't know. But suffice it to say, when Z408 was received by the police, and when each of the police department, each of the newspapers and the police departments found out that they were a third of the actual message, and that's what's obviously what's said in the cover letters. They, before any portion of the cipher was actually published, they put the cipher together, and then a police artist took a pen and he altered the cipher grid. Okay, and you might ask, well, how would that be done exactly? Well, it could be done very simply. I'll give you an example here. Let's say that you had, I don't have the cipher grid in front of me. These talks have been, up to this time, have been very informal, so I'm going to try to keep that. I don't work from notes. I just work from what I have up here, but I've been following the case in tremendous detail for 38 years now. So I may be wrong on some tiny little point here or there, but what I'm saying generally is I'm sure is absolutely true. Let me make absolutely sure. Darn it! Come on. Okay, I think yeah. All right. Just want to make sure I was recording. Let's say that you let's say that you got a cipher. You're a newspaper. You're a police department. You get a cipher. The newspaper's got the cipher, and then I'm assuming that they showed it to the police department. What happens in David Fincher's movie did not happen. Okay, where they get their portion of the cipher and the cover letter, and then they decide what to whether to publish or not. As Dave Aranchak pointed out to me, because I originally thought that none of the newspapers actually if I'm not mistaken, Graysmith says the same thing. None of the newspapers actually published its portion of the cipher on Friday, August 1st, 1969. And then Dave Aranchak years ago sent me an email or a message on a message board, which including the a screenshot of the Vallejo Times Herald for Friday, August 1st, 1969, which actually did contain their section of cipher. So apparently I'm wrong about that, but they did some fast work. A police artist altered the cipher, I believe, 20 symbols in the cipher. The question is, how would you do this? Here's how you would do it, and you could do it very easily with just a police artist taking the cipher grid or a copy of it and using a pen and making small alterations. For example, let's say that you had an O as one of the cipher symbols. You could change that just by adding a line like this. See if I can make that a little bit. Darn it. This isn't going to work. Okay. And now all you've done is add one pen stroke. And what was an O is now a Q. Okay. Let's try a square. Like this. Let's say you had a symbol like this. You could change it by filling in one of the halves of the square. Like this, okay? Or, as I point out, which is the best example of this, in the San Francisco Chronicle, third of the cipher, the first symbol of the third line was originally a Z. And what they did was they changed that, or the artist did, changed that into a square. And if I'm not, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's just like the square I just showed you. I believe it's a half filled in square, but I'll have to check that. The point I'm trying to make is this is how. Okay, that was originally a Z, and then it was changed into I think a half filled in square. I'm not, like I said, I don't have the thing in front of me. However, if you go to the trouble of getting Grace Smith's book or going online and looking at the original cipher, Z408, you will notice that in the third portion, the first symbol on the third line of the third portion of the San Francisco Chronicle version is a square that looks a kilter. It doesn't look quite on the same line as the other symbols are. And the reason for that is it was originally a Z, and then it was altered by the police artist. Okay, so the police changed 20 of the symbols, and something like, I think like 18 or 19 of the symbols were changed just the way that I've illustrated here, by making, adding one stroke here, or it's something that you could do easily if you're an artist and you have control of what you're drawing. You could, and even if you made mistakes, then you could just get another copy of the thing and do it over again and stick it in the newspaper. The idea being that for I believe 19 of the 20 symbols that they changed, all it would have required is a pen to alter the characters. There is one symbol, and again, I don't have the thing in front of me, which is I think was, I want to say, a filled in triangle, something like this. And then what the police artist did apparently was take some liquid paper and create a blank space inside the triangle, I believe with a dot. Let me stick a dot in there. Something like that. Okay, I'm not sure why that was done. Maybe just to have something that varied from the other alterations. Okay, and part of the point of what I'm trying to and Brax Cisco, when I mentioned this on the message board in January 2013, went berserk and sent me threatening emails and said that I was suffering from mental diarrhea. And I don't have the paragraph he wrote me, but it was very nasty. And then you would have thought that he would have been criticized on the board, but he wasn't. I was criticized for publicizing a personal message. That's it's the weird ethics of Zodiac Killer message boards. You have Zodiac Killer, you have Hobbyist Logic, and you have a hobbyist ethics also. So somehow, if I send you a threatening personal message on a Zodiac Killer message board, and then you publicize it, you're the bad guy, not the guy who sent the nasty message. Anyway, that's the idea. The Z408, 20 of the symbols were altered. Okay, the first question we need to ask ourselves is, why would the police have done that? Well, the police would have done that so that if somebody came forward with a solution to the puzzle, having, let's say he did it for publicity's sake, and then he's going to look like a hero when he comes forward with a solution, his solution would not match what had actually been shown the public, okay? Or if any suspect showed knowledge or had a sheet that had the cipher symbols on it that varied from what they actually sent out to the public, then, in other words, what this is called, generally speaking, is an investigative key. It's the sort of thing that police do to give a variation on the details of a case and to trip up somebody who either comes forward, a perpetrator who comes forward, or somebody that they talk to who shows knowledge of the crime or the event in this case that he shouldn't have. Okay, so that was the idea, and the question is, why do I think that? And that's the first question. The second question is, why should we believe that? Okay, and I can answer both of those things. The the first question is, why do I believe it? I believe it because I believe Gareth Penn to have been one of the 4 Zodiac killers. And if you look at Time 17 on page 50 of the book, there is a graphic of Z408. But what's really weird about the graphic is that it contains different symbols. It contains about 20 different symbols from what we're used to seeing. What is, for example, if you have a copy of Robert Graysmith's original book, you'll see what the published symbols were, the symbols that were actually published in the newspaper. And Gareth's grid differs by 20 symbols, okay? So the question is, how is it that Gareth would have a different cipher grid from the one that we assume was that was sent by the Zodiac Killer? And you've seen people like Mike Butterfield, who has come out, and when I've pointed this out, that the Gareth's grid differs by 20 symbols from the published grid. Mike Butterfield essentially says that Gareth Penn was being careless. How does that happen exactly? How does someone who is as meticulous as Gareth Penn is accidentally create a grid, put a grid in his book that differs by 20 symbols from what was published in the newspapers? Okay, that doesn't make any sense, and the suggestion that Gareth did it on purpose doesn't make any sense. Okay, why would you do that? Why would you? A cipher grid was published in the newspapers. I'm going to take that grid, unless I was somehow doing it to advertise a solution, and I had to change, if I were, let's say, Robert Graysmith, and I had to change the original symbols so that my solution was readable, maybe that might make sense. But by the time Gareth published Time 17, it was 1987. So let's take a look at that. Time 17 was self-published by Gareth Penn in the year 1987. And I ought to know because I was in Mensa at the time. Gareth and I were correspondents, had been correspondents for a couple of years by then, because we met by telephone in 1985 after he put an article about the Zodiac Killer in the Mensa Bulletin and included his phone number with that. So I called him. And so I helped advertise Gareth was ultimately banned from putting advertising for his book in any Mensa publication because Mensa got very leery about the idea of his accusing Michael O'Hare of being the Zodiac Killer, and they didn't want to be, taken to court as a result of that. So Gareth was not able to advertise in any official Mensa publications. But what you had back in the 1980s, I haven't been a Mensa member since '88, so I'm not sure what they do now. But what happened back then is that there were publications that were indirectly related to Mensa, but they weren't official publications of American Mensa. So, for example, the magazine that Gareth published a lot of his articles about the Zodiac Killer in was called the Ekphorizer, and it was the editors were Mensons, but the magazine itself was not directly, it wasn't a direct publication of Mensa. Okay, and besides knowing Gareth, I was the moderator of two special interest group newsletters. Um, there are these things inside Mensa called SIGs, which are SIGS, which are special interest groups. And they're devoted to various fields of study. So, for example, I was the moderator of the Dreamers special interest group, which was about I created both groups. I created the Dreamers special interest group, which was about the interpretation of nocturnal dreams. And it's one of the reasons why Zodiac Killer Dreams is called Zodiac Killer Dreams. It's because of my background since I read Patricia Garfield's book, Creative Dreaming, in 1970. Well, I read it I think in 78, but the book came out in 74. So I was I was whatever we were called back then, moderator or what have you, of the Dreamer Special Interest Group. I was also believe it or not, I was also the moderator of the Bodybuilders group. I was a fairly active bodybuilder back in the 1980s, and if you go down my basement here, I have what sets apart, serious bodybuilders. I have Olympic weights, and I have a 10-in-1 bench. I have a I have a bench with safety hooks. I have I guess I have various other things down there which are related to bodybuilding. And when I was a bodybuilder, I think the most I ever bench pressed was 240, but I could do squats with 300 pounds. And when I worked years and years ago, when I was a professional typist, I worked at a hospital, and one of the guys who worked we were in purchasing at the hospital, and one of the guys that I worked, and we had to, I had to do a lot of typing. Plus, you had to be big and strong enough to be able to push like these nutting trucks of supplies into the hospital and distribute them and so forth. So one of the guys I worked with was an amateur bodybuilder, and he competed in things like here in Pittsburgh, like in the Mr. North Hills and so forth. And anyway, he had me reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography, and got me into doing everything that I did for the next. Eventually, I switched from being an avid bodybuilder to being an avid cyclist, and I've had various high-end bicycles since then. But that didn't happen until the early '90s. During the '80s, I was into bodybuilding, and anyway, as a result of being in two of the special interest groups, I was able to use my contacts with the other special interest groups and to publicize Gareth's book. Okay. So Gareth's book comes out in 1987. The Z408 was published in the newspapers, obviously, in August of 1969. So we're talking about a difference of 18 years. 18 years later, Gareth comes out with this book times 17. So what would be his motive to put out a version of Z408 which was not accurate, which was different in 20 of the symbols were different, okay? And here's the funny thing. Gareth Penn's father, Hugh Penn, who was also a Zodiac conspirator, originally worked for the California Highway Patrol and then worked for the Attorney General's office, the DOJ in California. So obviously, besides having access to the state databases, Hugh Penn would also have access to things like what the original grid of Z408 was. Of course, Hugh Penn didn't need access to the original grid because he's the one who authored the cipher. Okay, if you believe Ray Grant. So the question is, if Gareth Penn puts the original grid of Z408 before, Dave Varanchak will specify when he's talking about Z340 whether he's talking about the transposed or the untransposed. Obviously, the transposed version is what we've seen all these years. It's what Brax Cisco had. It's what this guy had on the walls of his on the wall of his vestibule near his front door was the transposed version. And then what AZ Decrypt eventually deciphered was the untransposed version. So they had to find a way of untransposing the cipher first and then sending it through the deciphering program of Jarl Van Eyck. Okay, so in the case of Gareth Penn, we can talk about the altered and unaltered Z408 grid. And what you see in Grace Smith's book and what you will see online when you Google Z408 or Google Zodiac Killer cryptogram or what have you is the altered version of Z408. And what do I have? No. Okay. And what Gareth Penn has on page 50 of his book, and again, you can look at the grid. If you very likely don't have a copy of this book because they're going for copies of this book. I have 3 copies of the book, but they are now going for up in my attic. Maybe I'll sell them now that I'm retired. Who knows? But you can go to, all you have to do is giggle Gareth Penn's times 17. It will take you to Dave Varanchak's website, Zodiac Killer Ciphers, and it will take you to a page where you can click on I think 5 different sections of times 17. It's divided up into 5 sections, and page 50 I think is in the second section on Dave's website. I'm not positive about that, but I'm pretty sure the first section might be page 142 or something like that, and then so I think page 50 is in the second section, but I'm not sure. But it would be on page 50, and it's Z408 with 20 different symbols. Okay, and what is in Gareth Penn's book is actually the original version of the cipher. It's the version of the cipher that was sent to the 3 newspapers. And what you see in Robert Graysmith's book and online and on Mike Butterfield's website, and if you read the Butterfield's The Crackpot Files, all you have to do is Just Google Ray Grant Zodiac, and the first link it will take you to is the crackpot files. And he screams at me with veins popping out of his neck that I'm wrong about the Z408 cipher grid being changed by police. And the question is, how would he know that? I mean, whether I'm right or wrong, how on earth could Mike Butterfield know one way or the other that whether the cipher grid was the original or whether it had been altered by police? There wouldn't be any way of my knowing that unless, except for having seen seen page 50 of Time 17 and realizing that Gareth wouldn't have had any reason to change 20 symbols of the grid. The only reason that I could think of that he might do that would be if Gareth were interested in publicizing exactly that point, which is if Gareth came out in Time 17 and said, police changed 20 symbols of the cipher, this is what the original cipher grid looked like. And then in doing that, he could always say, well, my dad worked for the DOJ and they had copies of the original cipher grid, okay? But the fact is, Gareth never says anything like that in his book. In fact, he doesn't make any reference whatsoever to the fact that his version of Z408 has 20 different symbols from the version that was published, okay? So why would he, if it's not the original grid, why would he do that? Would it be possible that Gareth wouldn't know that the original, no, that doesn't make any sense at all. I'm thinking about that, and I realized that he couldn't be unaware of the fact that the cipher grid was altered. And the reason for that is when Gareth published Time 17, he used the same hardware and software that I had. I had the original Macintosh 128, so I had all the programs that Gareth had. And Time 17 was written with a Mac 128. Okay, it was written with the original Mac. Well, I don't remember when the Mac 512 came out. You could get like a kit that upgraded your Mac from a 128 to a 512. So I'm not positive that the Time 17 wasn't written with a 128. It's possible that by mid 87, Gareth had updated his computer to a 512, but it was either the original 128 or it was the updated version, which was 512. And again, it would have been the same computer. It's just that you would get the kit that changed it to a 512. So the point I'm trying to make here is Gareth needed, for example, is I'm sure Dave Aranchik, if he's watching this, he's familiar with this idea. He would have needed special fonts to create a Zodiac Killer cipher grid, a Z408 cipher grid that looked like the original, symbols, okay? And if you listen to, I want to say it's in episode 6. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it's in episode 5 of Dave's series. But he thanks somebody for their awesome Zodiac Killer cipher grid. And that's why. It's because you would need a set of fonts that could reproduce the symbols, which I assume were hand-drawn on the original cipher grids. But to do that on a computer so that you could then print it out and so forth. And the point I'm trying to make in all of this is that if you go to page 50 in Time 17, and then compare the symbols with, and I don't have my original book, but I think Mike Butterfield, if you go to the Crackpot files, Butterfield has a page from my original 1990 book where I circled the symbols that were altered. But anyway, you will, if you spend any time at all looking at the two grids, you will note that they are different by 20 symbols. Okay, so not only is Gareth's grid undoubtedly different, but he had to notice that it was different because he would have had to literally type in the symbols using some a font that had those particular symbols in. So there's no doubt that Gareth was aware when he wrote his book and published his book that he was publishing a version of Z408 that was different from that which had been published in the newspapers. But Gareth never mentions that. Okay. So this is something that you would do if you were a Zodiac conspirator, which is you would publish the actual grid. And remember, Z408 was originally published. It was originally published in the newspapers on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I believe all three portions of the ciphertext were put in the San Francisco Examiner's Sunday edition. But the Z408, which was published at that time, August 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 1969, was the altered police grid. And what is in times 17 is the original grid. Okay? So the reason again, Gareth has to know when he's writing the book that his grid is different from what was published. But enough time had passed that trust me, if I went to the police back in in 1987, let's say I noticed the variation. And I went to the FBI and said, hey, how come Gareth's Z408 is different from what was put in the newspapers? And then the FBI went to Gareth. My guess is Gareth would just have shrugged his shoulders and said, well, my dad worked for the DOJ. I mean, he said, and he gave me something that he told me was the original grid, and then I put it in my book. I wasn't aware of the fact that there was variation, which would have been bullshit because Gareth would have had to transcribe each of the individual symbols, and he would have noticed right away, especially when you're citing portions of the cipher grid. You're going to notice where there's variation, especially when there are 20 symbols and they're spread out over the entire 20 for the grid of Z408. Z408 was 24 by 17. So you're going to notice that what you're transcribing in your computer generated book, generated on a Macintosh 128 or 512, whenever it was. I think it was a 128 though. You're going to notice that your grid is different from the one that was published. And if you're Gareth Penn and you're not one of the Zodiacs, then you're going to say, hey, what the heck is going on? And you're going to investigate and you're going to, and if at some point you're going to come out and say, well, the police altered the grid. But Gareth doesn't say that. And if I had noticed I did notice by 1990, but there wouldn't have been any point in my, let's say, going to the FBI and pointing the discrepancy out, because then Gareth would just have said, well, my dad is retired now, but he worked for the DOJ back in the late 60s, and he would have had access to the original grid, and I didn't know that one was different from the other. And I'm sure the FBI would have bought that, okay? But that doesn't make any sense, because if Gareth had noticed that the grid was different and Gareth were not one of the Zodiacs, then he would have mentioned it in his book. And the fact that he doesn't is another little telltale sign that Gareth was in on the Zodiac project. And the other thing about that is that you have to wonder about is you have to ask yourself, why would somebody like Gareth put the original, after he, if he's a conspirator and he realizes that the grid has been altered by the police, why would he put himself at risk by publishing the original grid? Well, there would be two reasons for that. First of all, as I just explained, nobody is going to take a step back and realize, hey, there's something weird going on here, for the simple reason that Gareth's dad worked for the DOJ. So he has a very easy out. If you don't think too hard about it, you're going to say to yourself, oh, okay, yeah, I mean, his dad had access to the original grid. That's the first reason to go ahead and put the original grid in your book. The second reason is that, as I point out with Z340, Dave Aranchek's solution is the correct solution to the cipher grid. But that's not the point of the Z340 cipher. And am I blue in the face yet? I've already said the point of the cipher is Me37. Okay, I put 20 rows in the cipher. The orchestration of the canonical Zodiac crimes is delineated by the cipher grid of Z340. You have 20 rows, which is 20 gunshots. He struck 20 times by gun. You have 17 columns. He struck 17 times by knife. Okay, and the point being that the entire that all of the Zodiac crimes were orchestrated right down to how many shots were fired or how many stabs were made. And as a result of that, when they did the canonical crimes, as I pointed out in Blue Rock Springs Park, they had to stop. The Zodiac Killer had to stop after 9 shots, even though Michael Magoo obviously was not dead yet, because he only brought 9 bullets with him, because they were limited to 9 there. Okay, it was part of the, in the other direction, Lake Kerman Road, they were able to kill the 2 victims with only 6 shots. So somehow they had to get rid of 4 other shots. 2 of them were into the car, 2 of them were into the air, probably fired above the field to the east. Okay, so that was the point of the Z340 cipher grid. The message in the cipher grid is in the format of the cipher, and not so much in the actual deciphering of the symbols. Okay, but there is information in the deciphering of the symbols because of the phrase life is death. Okay, life is 223. Death, if you're killing people with an AR-15, let's say, from the rooftop of the Liberty Mutual building, a death also involves a 223. You're using a 223 rifle. Okay, so that was the idea. And so what I'm getting at here is that you have to really appreciate Dave Aranchek when he's talking about, and people don't do this. People look at episode 5 of Let's Crack Zodiac, and all they care about is, what does the thing say? Oh, that wasn't me on the TV show. What else does it say? Okay, I hope you're having fun, trying to catch me, and goes on from there. There are nonetheless, as Dave talks about in episode 6 and episode 9, where he talks about what is beneath the solution. what the actual structure of, as I keep saying, when Z408 was constructed, it was not aimed at cryptographers. It was aimed at, essentially, it was aimed at the public. Okay, well, mostly was not aimed at cryptographers, but the solution to Z340 was aimed at cryptographers. For all intents and purposes, when he is showing you a 17 character wide strings, there are 26 of those inside the cipher. He's essentially talking to cryptographers. He's talking about 17 characters of strings where there are no repeats. Okay? You have to do that on purpose. You have to have, when there are certain symbols that don't appear in the central part of the grid and only appear at the beginning and at the end, again, and creating the backwards L configurations, where he uses the same translation. He uses the same symbols, even though he's got four to pick from with the first letter, another four to pick from with the second letter, and so forth. Essentially, what he's doing is he's talking to cryptographers. Okay, he is talking presumably with the people who would end up solving the cipher, and Dave did a good job of finding those things that UPenn was putting there. So the other reason that Gareth Penn would have for putting the original grid in his book is to restore what was originally there. Okay, because if there are secondary values to the cipher sequences, and well, to the sequences, to what ciphers they used, and so forth, as Dave Aran, I assume that there are a higher percentage of Dave Aranchek fans watching this video than there are Ray Grant fans. So you should listen to what Dave says in episode 6 of Let's Crack Zodiac and episode 9 of Let's Crack Zodiac, which is these specific sequences of the symbols and what symbols that the author of the Z340 used. Those are significant. So if the police, not realizing what they were dealing with, and let's use this is a better illustration of it. If the police, not realizing what they were dealing with, not realizing that they were dealing in effect with a two-step cipher, where you solve one step of the cipher, and this leads you into a second step, which has some sort of secondary meaning to it, or could have the actual solution to the cipher. Which symbols are there could be very significant. And if you're changing 20 of the symbols, and let's check really quickly with that. You're changing 20 symbols out of 408. That's not quite 5% of the cipher. So you're changing 5% of the cipher, and you're changing those symbols all over the cipher. So in all likelihood, and whoever the police artist was simply trying to trip up the guy who wrote the cipher, just in case he came forward, or if they ended up interrogating him at some point, they would have this little secret behind, in the back of their minds, that we changed the cipher grid, so this guy may expose himself inadvertently. He may end up saying something which indicates he knows things that he shouldn't know. Okay, that's the idea. But if you're the Zodiac Killers, if you're you, Penn, and you're doing what you did in Z340, which is to create these patterns inside the cipher that are in addition to what is in just the plain English. And remember, he's intentionally misspelling words, so he's giving himself some latitude to play with the cipher sequences and with what symbols he uses. And so what's going to end up happening is you're going to alter whatever the secondary patterns are that you want people to find. Okay, so the idea behind putting out the original cipher grid is just to correct that. It's the same motivation. I was saying. Let me see what I'm going to do here. Let's use this one here. I was saying in the last video that what the Zodiac Killer does, what the Zodiac Killers do, what U Penn did. U Penn was the main they created this gun number sequence. And there's no way on earth you're going to be able to read that. So let me try this again. Okay. You had a 22 at Lake Herman Road. You had a 9mm at Blue Rock Springs Park. You had a 45 in Lake Berryessa. Again, it was used on the couple. He just didn't shoot them with it. But the reason we have laws against people pointing guns is that pointing a gun at somebody is reckless endangerment if the gun is loaded. If the gun isn't loaded, it's still an assault. Okay? So he did use a 45. I mean, he just didn't shoot the victims with it. And a 38 was used in Presidio Heights. And when he used the 38 in Presidio Heights, and then the police changed the gun typing to a 9mm, he writes in the Mount Diablo letter, I got even with him in another way, or words to that effect. I shot a man sitting in a parked car with a 38. Paul Stine had just put his car in park when the Zodiac Killer shot him. Okay, how do we know that? We know that because the sequence of events when a cab driver pulls up at an address where his passenger has given him is the sequence is he breaks the car, puts the car in park, and then reaches over to turn the meter off. Okay, Paul Stine's cab was put in park, but Paul Stine didn't have time to shut the meter off because the Zodiac Killer shot him at that point in the above and in front of his right ear, so in the right side of his head with a forward slant. So that's how we know that the killer shot Paul Stine immediately after he put the car in park, because he never got to turn the meter off, and the meter was still running when police arrived. Okay, so it's significant that the statement in the Mount Diablo letter was, I shot a man sitting in a parked car with a 38. Yeah, because Paul Stine had just put his cab in park, and he was shot with a 38. So that's what the logic was. Forget about Richard Raditich. He didn't. The Zodiac did not shoot Richard Raditich, and he wasn't claiming that he had shot Richard Raditich. Okay, now let's do the gun numbers. I showed you the simplest form of number to letter substitution is alphabet numbers. It's A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, D equals 4, and so forth. And we see that, for example, in the pi to zodiac correlation, where 3.1415926 converts to CADOIZ. It's an anagram for zodiac, okay? So the simplest way of doing number to letter is alphabet numbers. The second simplest is backwards alphabet numbers. And if you're signing yourself as Z in at least two of your letters in Riverside, the most appropriate substitution might be an alphabet that repeats going backwards. You start with Z. Z equals 1, Y equals 2, X equals 3, W equals 4, and so forth. And for the first 26, it's very simple to convert those, because all you have to do is subtract the normal letter value. If it's E, for example, if it's 22, for example, normally 22 is V is the 22nd letter of the alphabet, but you subtract 22 from 27 and you get 5. So the actual letter in the backwards alphabet is E. So what we get is this sequence. We get the sequence ERHO, but you have to realize what the correct numbers are. Otherwise, you're not going to end up with this, okay? And as I said, it is a form of the main, one of the main themes of the Zodiac Project, which is life is 223, and Michael O'Hare's name spelled backwards, once you remove the central A, is an expression of 223. And this is very simple. It's, there's no hidden additions or subtractions or anything like that. There was a guy on Mike Butterfield's board who called himself Jeff. And then he did this long dissertation about how I was wrong, because he could show how everything converted to something else. And he was adding numbers and subtracting numbers and using, I think he would have used calculus if he was smart enough, but I don't think he was. Another anonymous country was heard from, though. But this is a very simple transmission from the gun numbers, backwards alphabet, the original alphabet numbers, which then express this sequence of 223. So when by the time they got to Z408, what was actually in the cipher grid was significant. And what the Zodiacs had to do was, where you saw the correction of the number 38 for what the police were saying after 38 appeared in the original newspaper story in the San Francisco Chronicle. What you saw with what you saw with the Mount Diablo letter is the Zodiacs correcting the mistyping of the gun. And it's the same idea with page 50 of Time 17. It's Gareth Penn correcting what the police artists uncorrected. Okay, now here's the question. And again, the reason for doing that is it changes what the it changes what the sequence beneath the the cipher grid, the symbol to English letter conversion changes, and the patterns beneath that change once you change 5% of the symbols. Okay, so let me see if I can do. Oh, I did that already. Okay, well, I think we'll. What are we going to go with next here? Oh, okay. We can. Here's the question. Richard Grinnell is going to come out and say, "Oh, this is another example of fiction by Ray Grant. He's inventing this. He's inventing a police artist to change the grid." First of all, the idea of changing the cipher grid is again police procedure 101. Okay, police do it all the time. They do it. Obviously, the cipher grid of Z408 would be a relatively elaborate example of it, but police put out misinformation all the time, okay? And they do it again to catch people who would either come forward or people who they would then talk to, and a person would have information that wasn't released to the public, okay, which would presumably incriminate him. So it's the same idea. I mean, this isn't anything new. The idea that the police would change the cipher grid isn't anything, isn't strange. What was I thinking of there? I don't know. But what I want to do is, let's see if I can go. I'm going to do what everybody on every Zodiac Killer message board does. And I'm going to go to Tom Voigt's Zodiac Killer website. And by the way, there's nobody goes to Tom's website more often than the people who say they hate Tom. So, okay, now I'm going to look at, I'm on Tom's site. I'm going to look at the victims. And now I'm going to look at the Darlene Ferrin and Michael Magoo. And now I'm going to look at the it's a picture of Michael Magoo. Let me see if I can find Vallejo Police Department. I'm looking for the words police report, but it's actually Vallejo Police Department. Let me see if I can. Yes, I can. Okay, I can do this. All right. I'm going to show you some things here, which is, I don't know. Actually, I don't know if you can see them on, so I may be doing this for no reason whatsoever, but this is if you can make that out, I don't know if you can. This is page 31 of the Vallejo Police Report. And again, I don't know if you can see that. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But what it shows is, it shows date 7/21/69. Remember, Z408 would have arrived on 8/1/69. The three portions were mailed on 7/31/69. So on page 31, it's they're talking about 7/21/69 and various things that happened. Oh, 7/23/69. So page 31 of the Vallejo PD police report is dealing with events that happened roughly a week prior to the Z408 mailing. And I don't know if you can see that, but the all the various notes and so forth go all the way down the page. And now we're going, that's page 31. We're going to go to page 32. And again, you have the page that is pretty well covered. This is page 32 of the Vallejo Police Report, the Physical Evidence Examination Report, Vallejo Police Department, James Phillip, Donald Warren, Darlene Farron, and this says the following exhibit was removed from CII evidence July 24th, 1969. So we're getting closer and closer to the mailing of the mailing time. Now I'm going to skip ahead. I have talked about page 31 and 32 of the Vallejo Police Report. Let's go to page 34 of the Vallejo Police Report. And again, I don't know if you can see that, but you can go to the Vallejo Police Report on Tom Voigt's board, not the board, the Tom Voigt's website, and it would be under victims under Darlene Farron, and it would be under the there. Just click on where it says Vallejo Police Department. Here, what you have is August. At the top of the page, August 7th, 1969, 12:45 p.m. It continues, detail by Captain Byrd to go to the Stockton PD and contact Lieutenant James Riley. What else? Okay, so this is roughly a week after the mailing, okay? And now let's go to the next page, 35. And this page is not quite filled all the way down, but it goes to 8/8/69. When David returned to Stockton, he stated several times that he knew the girl that had been murdered at Lake Herman Road. 8/8/69, 6:35 p.m. Then it talks about the solution to Z408. I like killing people because it's so much fun. It's more fun than killing wild game in the forest. The message is as follows. It says, called Mr. and Mrs. Harden, and they states that this is an accurate deciphering of the cryptogram. Okay, so that is page 35. Okay, so far I've shown you page 31, page 32, page 34, and 35. Now I'm going to backtrack and show you page 33. And if you look at page 33 of the Vallejo Police Report, what you see at the top, it says 8/1/69, anonymous letter received by Times Herald paper. And it says 5834, 5834, JMC. There's a little marking that says indexed. And the rest of the page is blank, okay? It is the only page in the Vallejo Police Report for the murder of Darlene Farron and the murder event that took place on July 4th, July 5th, but actually July 5th of 1969. It is the only page of that report that is not mostly filled by notes. In fact, it is almost entirely blank. You can check this out yourself, but that's what it looks like if you can see it. Okay? So the question is, why of all dates mentioned in the Vallejo Police Report, of all dates that you would think would have all kinds of notations on it, that section of the police report, why would that section of the police report be blank? Okay. Let's play the Jeopardy theme here. Maybe I have that. We could probably use a little bit of music here. I wonder why that page is blank. Mike Butterfield, do you have any ideas? All right, thanks very much. I'm not paying for that music, by the way. But anyway, why in God's name would that page of would that particular page? Let's make absolutely sure I'm still. I didn't stop, did I? Yeah, no. Okay. Why would page 33 of the Vallejo police report, which contains the date of the reception of Z408, why would that page be blank? I can think of a reason. What if there were notes on that page that pertained to something that the police did that they didn't want you to know about, just in case this thing gets copied and distributed to the internet? Doesn't exist yet, but who knows, if you're going to have a secret like that, you're going to keep it under wraps. You're not going to tell a bunch of people. So I am guessing that at some point they took the original grid of the cipher, took it to a police artist, he altered the cipher, and then they then put in. By the way, once they do that, it's not as if other people are suddenly going to notice and say, hey, the cipher grid's been altered, when they see the cipher grid. They're not going to. So this is a secret that could have been kept fairly close to the vest by the police and by the newspapers. And I can imagine a scenario where the newspapers weren't even aware that who's going to notice something like that of a grid of these strange symbols? Would even the police photographer who took, there's a section of the David Fincher movie where they show the cipher grid being photographed from above, with very elaborate photographic technique. But even the guy who's running that machine, if, later on he looks at the cipher grid and it's been altered, is he going to notice it? I don't necessarily think so. But as always happens when you're dealing with Ray Grant, okay, and I just had a guy on. I just had an anonymous poster on a Zodiac message board last night. Let me see what this guy said. Okay. I just had, this is why, by the way, I'm not going to appear on Ned's channel anymore, okay? Because guy posted last night, Ray Grant, you don't even have an original idea of your own. You take someone else's work and add a couple of crazy ideas to it and call it yours. Where would you be without the book Times 17? Well, like 200 people in Greater Boston would be dead if I didn't have that. But beyond, what's funny about that is, because I gave my copies of Times 17 to one police agency and one of the I think Liberty Mutual. I'm not sure where I had two copies. I'm not sure where they went, but I think I eventually got copies off of eBay years later. But I wrote my first book without Times 17. I didn't have a copy of the book because when I was in the process of preventing the Terminus event from happening in 1989, I had to give copies of the two copies of the books that I had to the authorities. Okay, So when I wrote, and they didn't give them back. So when I wrote my original book in 1990, in point of fact, I didn't have a copy of Times 17. And a lot of what I'm talking about right now, I had to do from memory. Okay, but you don't even have an original idea of your own. You take someone else's work and add a couple of crazy ideas to it and call it yours. Where would you be without the book Times 17? That's an accusation of plagiarism. And my response was, I have to respond to any accusation of a crime because I've accused Michael O'Hare and Gareth Penn and the two deceased Zodiacs of murder. If I don't respond, they can then come back and say, you were accused of such and such, and you did nothing. So how can you then say that Michael O'Hare or Gareth Penn are behaving illogically by not responding to such accusations? So if somebody accuses me of a crime, I've talked about Zabs on Butterfield's board accusing me of comparing me to a pedophile, and then I demanded that the comment be taken down. Butterfield refused to take it down. I made a formal complaint to his domestic server, Savas, and they took Butterfield's website down, and that eventually resulted in Butterfield's forum going belly up because he had to use a server in Panama. And as you know, when people go to a website, you have to wait for 3 or 4 extra seconds for the connection to be made. What ends up happening is your website dies. Okay, so it's the same logic. If the reason I am not going to do any videos with Ned DeHaan anymore. I understand where Ned is coming from. Same thing with Tom Voigt. Tom Voigt wants to have he wants to have threads like the McGruber thread on his board because it drives traffic to his forum, which makes perfect sense. However, I'm more interested in the facts of the Zodiac case and the actual research and dealing with the case itself, and not with a lot of juvenile behavior. Okay, so I eventually decided that I was never going to post on the Zodiac Killer message boards. So I've decided that at various times, but I, having been the moderator of my own section over there, and deciding that wasn't enough, because unless you can ban people, you can't really stop them from misbehaving. They're just going to keep posting, and you would basically have to spend all of your time, or unless you can block people. You can block people on YouTube, okay? But unless you can, I can't block people from my own sections of the board. So even if I'm a moderator, that it doesn't prevent people from, not only from people posting on my sections of the board, and then I have to delete what they're trolling, but then they can post on other sections of the board saying, hey, Ray Grant is denying us our constitutional rights. And what I would say about Ned DeHaan is that I understand the reluctance to ban people who are just like heckling people, and I get tired of people. It's almost like I'm embarrassed for them, because they'll keep posting stuff like, well, your ideas are crazy, and they're just crazy, and it's one crazy after idea after another, and they never say why this idea or that idea is crazy and what's so crazy about it. And if what I hope is, if you've been looking at my videos, that it will explain why I think what I think. I don't think there's anything crazy about the reference to, for example, the Vallejo police report. I think it is a genuine mystery that page has been blanked out. And again, I think it backs up what I say about the cipher grid having been altered. So as I said, I understand where Ned is coming from. However, you really you have to pick your spots, and you have to decide what's important to you. If it is important to Ned DeHaan to defend the honor of anonymous posters who are acting like 3-year-olds on his message board, that's fine. I can understand the reluctance to ban someone. I do not understand the reluctance to simply erase that sort of thread, particularly from someone who's providing content to you. So maybe the poster in question can go on Ned's. Well, he's anonymous, so he's not going to do that. But he can go on Ned's channel and do an hour on Ted Bundy, or do an hour on Joan Webster, which I was going to do on Thanksgiving. But now I have the day free now because I'm not going to do it. Um, I have had as much heckling from people as I'm going to take, and I don't think it's because I'm particularly. There have been other well-known Zodiac researchers who have been who've become sensitive to this sort of thing because it gets old after a while. Look, the Ted Cruz jokes are beyond being old, okay? And I think it's funny that Fox Beach on Reddit, who I think is a I know Tom Voigt doesn't like him, but I think is a pretty thoughtful guy, and I agree basically with him a lot of what he says. But the one thing it just he's very easygoing. But the one thing that irritates the hell out of him is when Ted Cruz jokes appear on the subreddit, okay? And why those people aren't immediately banned from, instead, they're banning Ray Grant, okay? Yeah, Dr. Nika banned Ray Grant, and he banned me after he told me to spend a month building up my Reddit age and karma. And meanwhile, he's not banning people who make Ted Cruz jokes. But I would very happily ban anyone who makes a Ted Cruz joke if I were doing a subreddit. And I've had as much heckling as I'm going to put up with at this point. And again, if it's important to Ned to not ban those people, or at the very least not to delete their threads, that's fine. I mean, you have to live with the world you create. I mean, basically. So that's Ned's choice. I'm sorry it has to be that way, but you know sometimes people have to learn their lessons the hard way. So keep in mind that the reason that Druzer's video over on the Zodiac Killer Expert series, now it should be called Zodiac Killer Hobbyist series, I think, with Druzer on there. But interviews with the hobbyist. Here's our first interview with the hobbyist. It's Andrew Gray. Anyway, see, I'm just jealous because my Lake Herman Road video has been the most successful, and it's almost got 1,000 views. And I think Druzer got like 1,000 views in his first 24-hour period. But the only reason Druzer is even on there is that I donated 200 pounds, which is $259, to the Zodiac Killer channel so that they would upload those two videos, one of which is the Druzer video, and I think the other one is, I may be wrong. I was wrong about the Druzer video, what that was, so I don't know what the other video is, but I think it's, and then the Druzer video is from 2 years ago. I believe the other video is Richard Grinnell interviewing Ned DeHaan, okay? And basically interviewing him about, where he came from, what he's doing, and so forth. And again, it's unfortunate that I'm not going to be doing videos with Ned, and I'm not going to be looking at his channel or anything. But it's that's the way it goes sometimes. It's I I've learned to appreciate time, I think, a little bit better than maybe some others do, and having time to do things. And as it is, I waste too much. As I'm doing now, probably I waste too much time talking about things that don't really matter very much. Anyway, the point of all this being with Z408 is that the original grid was altered. And as a result of that, the solution to the grid is not exactly what was intended by the Zodiac killers. And at this late date, I don't know that that's that significant. But what I will point out is that when you're done with the English part of Z408, what you have is, okay, I'll use this one then. I'll just erase Glurk. I don't know if that's visible or not. Anyway, what you have with Z408 is you have 390. Actually, I'm going to use the other board because this one has. Okay. What you have with Z408 is a breakdown of, and I guess I'll still be talking about the cipher in the next video because I'm not sure. Maybe I'll finish it up here. Maybe I won't. But what you have with Z408 is you have 390 characters of English and then 18 characters of gibberish, okay? That adds up to 408. You have 18 characters at the end. The breakdown of that is as close as you can get to pi. If you do it any other way, it's not going to be as close. Z408 is 390 characters of English and 18 characters of gibberish. It's this breakdown right here. It isn't exactly the same, but it's as close as you can come to the breakdown between the whole number of 3. This is actually in Gareth Penn's book. I think everything else I've shown you up till now is Ray Grant. But I believe this is actually in time 17. So I'm citing my... it may not be in time 17. It may have been in one of Gareth's letters to me, but it originates with Gareth. And by the way, I always do that. If I always point out things that I myself have found I just present, and if it's something that I got that was in Gareth's book, then I will point out that I'm quoting him. So it's 390.18. It's as close as you can get to the relationship between 3 and 1415926. If you have 391 over 17, that's further away, or 389 and 19. The breakdown of Z408 is as close as you can get to pi in 408 characters in that breakdown. I don't think that's a coincidence. And as we've seen already, I mentioned it earlier that the 3 and the 7 decimal digits convert to an anagram of Zodiac. Okay, that is mine. So what else is there with okay, the breakdown is as close as you can get to the breakdown of pi, and don't want to say anything about the 18. Oh, well, here's the thing. What people keep pointing out is that, let's do it this way. BTH SFE and SFC. Vallejo Times Herald, San Francisco Examiner, San Francisco Chronicle. Each of these is 136 characters. But the breakdown of SFC is actually 118 followed by 18 at the end. And people for some reason believe that the reason they're, well, Braxisco, for example, the reason that there are 18 characters at the end is because they were just filling out the grid. Okay, this doesn't make any sense, because if you add that, well, if you have 390 characters, and that was your original message, then all you need to do is you need to send 3 portions, which are, what would that be? 13 by 10. There would be other ways of doing it. You could do a 26 by 5, I guess. But you could just send 3 ciphers, 13 rows by 10 columns, and that gets you to 390 instead of 408. But is that right? Yeah, it's 130 and 130 and 130. Right. Okay. But what they wanted was, instead, each of the portions is 8 by 17. So one of the things this tells you is they were locked into the 17. Okay. Now, it's been theorized that the reason they have 17 columns everywhere is that that's what you get if you have graph paper. You end up getting like 17 columns. Well, maybe, but the what the one thing that we know about Z408 is that the entire grid was written. The entire grid was written as a single statement, and the reason for that is if you look at the breakdown of the portions of the cipher, the breakdown between between Vallejo Times Herald and San Francisco Examiner, and the break between San Francisco Examiner and San Francisco Chronicle, those two breaks not only happen in mid sentence, they happen in the middle of words. Okay, so I don't think. By the way, I don't think that's true of Z340. I think Z340, at the very least, there aren't any dissected words. I think there are. I think when you go from the first 9 lines to the second 9 lines, they're completed words at least. I don't know. I don't think they're completed sentences, but no, they aren't. Well, the second portion is sooner because yeah, okay. The second portion is part of a sentence that's begun in the first portion, but you don't have subdivided words in Z340. At least I don't think you do. In Z408, as I said, the breaks come right in the middle of words. So what that tells us is that the 390 character grid, 390 characters was the original message, and it could easily have been broken down into 13 by 10 portions. So they were, and you could have done that on graph paper. Okay, there wasn't any necessity to include 18 letters at the end. So that would suggest fairly strongly, plus the breakdown being as close to the breakdown in pi as you can get between the whole number and the decimal digits, that the cipher grid and the 18 characters was they were intended all along, and they weren't part of some what's the word for it, filler. They're not filler. Okay, so whatever the I have my own opinion about what the 18 letters say, but in any case, the 18 letters were not there just because they're filler. At least I don't think they were. Let me think if I can think of anything else about Z40. Oh, okay. I made this point already, but I'll make it again just to point it out. The first thing the Zodiac Killer says in the San Francisco Bay Area, at least as far as ciphers go, is I like killing people. So let's do this. Well, okay, we'll do it vertically. I made this point already, but why not be redundant? He says, I like killing people. By the way, like is 37. So what you have is you have 9, which is I, and then you have 37. So the number 37 appears just before killing people appears. Okay? Let's look at killing people first, and then I'll get back to that. These are the alphabet quantities for killing people. It's K is 11, I is 9, L is 12, two L's, I is 9, N is 14, G is 7, seventh letter of the alphabet. People's P is 16, 16th letter, E is 5, O is 15, P is 16, L is 12, E is 5, okay? If you add them up, 11 plus 9 is 20, 32, 44, 53, 67, 74. So it's 74. And people, 16th letter plus 5, 21, 36, 52, 64, 69. Okay? So killing people is 7469. So you just put dashes in between the 7 and the 4 and the 6 and the 9, and you get the date, what the intended date of Darlene Ferrin's murder. Unfortunately, they weren't quite able to kill her, which is why Michael O'Hare drives off originally, because the clock struck 12, and then I'm assuming Penn told him, no, go ahead and shoot them, and we'll just say it happened on 7469. So that's what it is. The original phrase before that is I like. So I is 9, L is 12, I is 9, K is 11, E equals 5. So like is 37 by alphabet quantities, okay? So before you have killing people, you have I, which is I am, it's the actor, if you want to look at it that way. And then you have 37. That's the number of times he's going to strike when he kills people. Okay? So now this might be a little bit of a situation where I'm reading things into what's there, but I think this is pretty straightforward. Okay, I don't think it's. I think that the first thing that the killer says. I mean, Brax Sisko said that that Z408 was the Zodiac Killer's manifesto. It's this is a long way from Ted Kaczynski, is all I can say. But this seems like it's fairly simple. That basically the first thing that he says is, I like 37, killing people 7469. Okay, I'm guessing that isn't a coincidence. Although, as I said, I may be reading things into it. So I think we're getting towards 2 hours here. Okay. Anyway, basically what I've talked about is what the Z408 is, and what I will maybe when I when I get to the Z340 simple, I will talk about the sequence between the transition from Z408 to Z340 and what the significance of that might have been. But again, what I've tried to point to in this case, and I will. Do I want to talk about what's on the outside of the envelope? Wonder if I should do that. That's going to take me up to 2 hours probably. Okay, I could do that, I guess. Because there's always the possibility that my voice will disappear, in which case I won't be able to get to that until my injections happen on December 7th, and this is November 21st, and I'm thinking that my I'm thinking that my voice is scheduled to disappear on right around Thanksgiving. Well, Thanksgiving's like 2 days from now, so maybe the weekend. I don't know. The Steelers fired Matt Canada, by the way, the offensive coordinator. So, for those of you, I understand there are a couple of Steelers fans out there. So, um, let's talk about, instead of talking about what was inside the envelopes, let's talk about what was on the outside of the envelopes. A lot of people, if you ask them, what was the Zodiac Killer's signature phrase? They will say, it's this. This is the Zodiac speaking. Okay, I don't know if that's even readable, but it's the best I can do this time of night. This is okay. This is the Zodiac speaking. A lot of people will tell you that this is the Zodiac Killer's signature phrase, and the great Mike Kelleher, actually with David Van Nuys, or one of the better, certainly the early books about the case, wrote a book called "This Is the Zodiac Speaking," which I recommend. And very, very nice. I probably physically the nicest book. If you get a hardcover copy of that book, it's just very well put together. Anyway, a lot of people believe that this is the Zodiac Killer's signature phrase. This is the Zodiac speaking. Okay, and that would possibly seem to be the truth because the Zodiac Killer says it 11 times. Okay, however, it's not really the Zodiac Killer's signature phrase. The Zodiac Killer's signature phrase is actually this. Please rush to editor. Okay. He says this is the Zodiac speaking 11 times. He says please rush to editor at least 14 times. Okay. And let me underscore this here, because most of the time when he says this, he says it twice. On all of the cover letters for Z408, he says it twice. He says it on the front of the envelope, and he says it on the back of the envelope. Okay, so just those three letters to Vallejo Times Herald, San Francisco Examiner, and San Francisco Chronicle, you see this. Please rush to editor, please rush to editor. So just in that one mailing of July 31st, 1969, you see please rush to editor 6 times, because you see this on the front of the envelope and you see this on the back of the envelope. We don't have the envelope for the August 1969 letter, so I can't make that claim about that, although I would be willing to bet that if that envelope is ever unearthed, you're going to see the same thing. Okay? But this is six of the times. Then this, you have the same thing with, actually, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to You see if I still have Tom's let's go back. All right, let's do it this way. Go to Zodiac letters, and we can check the envelopes. There's no envelope for. Okay, it's true. It's also true. It's true of the 3 cover letters. It is also true of the October 13th letter. And I'm guessing it is also true of the November 8th letter. So that's 5. And November 9th letter, I'm sure. Yeah, it's also true of the November 9th letter. So there are the 3 cover letters for Z408. There's unfortunately, we don't have the envelope for the August 1969 letter. The 3 following letters, October 13th, November 8th, and November 9th, same thing. Please rush to editor on the front of the envelope, on the back of the envelope. The Melvin Belli letter does not have that written on it. And let me see if the Busbaum letter does. No. Okay. So, okay, what am I missing here? Okay, so the three July 31st, 1969 letters, and the 3 letter, other than the August 69th envelope, which we don't have, that is written on the front of each envelope and on the back of each envelope. So that would actually add up to 12, although I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to say 12 times because I don't have. I think there are 2 other letters in 71, or the last letter. I would have to go look at the letters, but if I'm not mistaken, he says please rush to editor 14 times. Just in the immediate vicinity of the Z408 cover letters, he says it 12 times. He says it on the front and back of each of those envelopes. And then we don't have the August 1969 envelope, but the following 3 letters, same thing. Please rush to editor on the front of the envelope. Please rush to editor on the back of the envelope. Okay? So this isn't the Zodiac signature phrase. The Zodiac signature phrase is actually please rush to editor. So the question becomes why? And I will, glad you asked that, because I'm going to explain why. Let's consider the phrase signature phrase, okay? If you have a signature phrase, you would expect that phrase to have your signature in it somehow, correct? So let's do this. If you're giving people information with ciphers and with other things that like pi and so forth, pi converting to zodiac, then you would expect that your signature phrase, which is the thing that you say more than anything else, and again, the Zodiac Killer, we know the Zodiac Killer was sending encrypted information in his letters, okay? So you would expect that the section of his letters that would be most informational would be his signature phrase. Okay, the thing, in other words, the thing that he says most often should be the thing that contains the most significant information. Does that make sense to you? If you're enciphering things, and if you're hiding in plain sight, would it not make sense to include your signature and to somehow reveal yourself in the thing that you say the most? Okay. The next question is, what is the thing that reveals you the most? Okay. And what is the thing about you that is most identifying? And a lot of people watching this are immediately going to say, well, it's your DNA, right? No. If you have an identical twin, your DNA isn't unique because your identical twin is going to have the same DNA as you have, the exact same. Your identical twin, he or she, will have the exact same blueprint in his cells that you have. Okay, so even DNA doesn't necessarily single you out, but there is something that does, and that is your social security number. Okay, there you only if you have a social security number, that's what the U.S. Postal Service does to identify its employees. Your SSN. So one of the ways that you might want to reveal yourself to the public is by using your signature phrase, and to include in the signature phrase your social security number. Okay? Again, is this logical? Am I making sense so far? Keep in mind that I'm crazy. I learned that from this anonymous poster on Ned DeHaan's video yesterday. Okay, I didn't realize I was crazy before. I've had therapists in the past, and I was not diagnosed with any standard pathology, but maybe I'm unique. Who knows? But anyway, you can judge for yourself just by watching these videos. So here's the idea. You have a signature phrase that you're using over and over again, and you're using more than anything else, okay? And that idea contains your social security number, okay? So the next question is, and I've pointed out that some of these that Michael O'Hare was the trigger man. Michael O'Hare is the person whose life is intended within the confines of the Zodiac Project to project the idea of 223. He is going to live for 23 years. He's going to kill Sherry Jo Bates, born in 1943, kills Sherry Jo Bates in 1966 when he's 23. And he intends to die in 1989 when he is 46. Okay? So he is the Zodiac Killer designee of the four people. Okay? So it would presumably be his social security number that he is trying to evoke. And I have already pointed out that the USGS coordinates of Sherry Bates's murder were 117 degrees 32 minutes and 33:58. It's Michael O'Hare 117322128. He is 117 at age 23 in 1966, and the Sherry Bates murder turns him into the Zodiac. Okay. So this is Michael O'Hare's social security number. So we are now trying to we are now What did I knock off? I knocked something off. I don't see anything missing here. I think that might be my cat making noises. I'm not sure. Anyway, so what we're trying to do here is create an equation which looks like this. Do you think Ray Grant is crazy, by the way? Maybe I should put up a poll. Do they have polls on YouTube? This is, by the way, what happened yesterday was actually an adult human being. Okay, an adult human being posting anonymously in the YouTube comments section, and he's saying, Ray Grant is crazy, and he's 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 crazy. Okay. I'm not going to say that the guy needs a life, but you know, he's in the pre-diagnosis stage of whatever syndrome he's suffering from. But see, here's the thing: I think Blaine is crazy. But I didn't keep following him around wherever he went. I mean, I would not. Um, I read like I spent about 5 minutes reading Blaine, like in 2010. I never went back, so I I don't understand why anyone would want to make a career or spend very much time even thinking about someone that they think is crazy. If you think I'm crazy, what are you doing here? Okay. If you think I'm crazy, how do you know so much about what I'm talking about? Because I think you would have to spend a lot of time looking at my videos and reading my books. I mean, even to come to that conclusion. And but you know what? There are people who think that Gareth Penn, Dave Aranchek thinks that Gareth Penn is stupid. So I mean, don't know how to deal with an idea like that. Anyway, this is what I'm trying. This is the equation that I'm trying to create. It's the Zodiac signature phrase, which is please rush to editor, and it is, at least for the first 6 letters that we have in the Bay Area, or I should say, 6 of the first letters that we have, because we don't have the envelope to the August 1969 letter. My guess is that would have the same configuration on it, but we can't assume that, I guess. But 6 of the first 7 envelopes that the Zodiac Killer sent in the Bay Area had this: please rush to editor on the front, please rush to editor on the back. It's his signature phrase. Michael O'Hare's social security number is 11732 2128. Okay. So here's the question: how does how does this convert to this, and does it convert to this? Well, let's find out. Uh, okay. Okay, here's what we have. We have the word please, which is the 16th letter, the 12th letter, the 5th letter, the 1st letter, the 19th letter, and the 5th letter, okay? So 16, see if I can see that there. 16 plus 12 is 28, plus 5 is 33, plus 1 is 34, plus 19 is 53, plus 5 is 58. Okay, so please, by alphabet numbers, is 58. And rush is, R is the 18th letter, U is the 21st letter, S is the 19th letter, and H is the 8th letter. So it's 18 plus 21, which is 39, plus 19, which is 58, plus 8, which is 66. So we have the sequence. We have the sequence 5866. But remember, every time he uses this in 6 of the first 7 envelopes, he says it twice. So let's say that let's use the converted numbers twice. So we have 5866 plus 5866. Okay? What does that give us? Let me get my iPhone here, and I've got the my calculator, and it's at 0, and we're going to put 5866, just like that, and we're going to multiply that by 2, and we get 11732. Okay. I don't know if you've noticed, but the Social Security number is 9 digits long. So far, we are 5 digits. Let me make that a little bit better. We're 5 digits into this conversion here, and we're 5 digits into Michael O'Hara's Social Security number. This looks promising so far. It's, if I were Dave Aranchek, I'd be saying, holy shit. But the problem is I don't have a dog. If I had a dog, then, I could say, holy shit, and the dog could look up at me, and I could be Dave for, for a brief moment. I could think that I must be Dave Aranchek. That's it. Yeah, I'm Dave Aranchek. Okay. So we have the 11732 part. How about the rest of it? Well, I'm going to do about as much, and I'm going to drink some tea so that my voice is going. I'm going to do about as much, fooling around with the ciphertext as Dave does in Z340. Okay, I think what I'm doing here is pretty straightforward. It isn't the same operation, I will give you that. But if you add the last 2 letters, and again, I will freely admit that this is not the same operation, but it isn't, it isn't something that I pulled out of my rear end either. It's the words to editor. We just did please rush. Let's do to editor. T is the 20th letter. O is the 15th letter. Editor is the 5th letter, the 4th letter, the 9th letter, the 20th letter, the 15th letter, and the 18th letter. Okay? So, to editor is 20th letter plus 15th letter, that's 35, plus 5th letter, that's 40, plus 4th letter, that's 44, plus 9 is 53, plus 20 is 73, plus 15 is 88, plus 18 is 106, right? So to editor, not the same configuration, okay? So you got me there. But to editor may be said to represent and I did this wrong, so there we go. To editor may be said to represent the number 106. But remember, there are two of them. See? To editor, to editor. So let's get back to our calculator. And 106 times 2 equals 212. So 106 gives us 212. Okay? So, how close have we come to the Michael O'Hare's Social Security number from please rush to editor, please rush to editor? Well, if we're allowed to fudge the operation between the first two words and the last two, other than that, it's a fairly straightforward conversion, wouldn't you admit? What we have is please rush, which is 11732. This ain't working. Okay. By the way, if you're Ned DeHaan and you see a poster calling Ray Grant crazy, wouldn't you immediately ban that person? I mean, look, I contributed to Ned's channel. I bought him coffees. Same thing with Tom. I've been buying Tom coffee since 2010. But I've been buying Ned coffees. And I bought him 2 videos from Steve Beaumont, okay? So, you see somebody calling your friend crazy, don't you ban that person immediately? Say, get the hell out of my house, but no, okay? So, anyway, we have run out of, unfortunately, we've run out of words to convert, but pretty straight conversion, wouldn't you admit? We have 11732 from please rush, and then to editor gives us 212. Okay, so we have, and notice that this is 8 numbers. So if you want to say that this sequence represents this configuration, now we would have to put parentheses around it, but 11732 is 8 numbers, right? So that in that sense it would convert. At the very least, what this does is it narrows down. If you make the same assumption that I made before we went through this conversion, and you say please rush to editor converts to the Zodiac Killer's Social Security number, you're going to have 10 people to look at. I'm not sure. I don't know if this, it's conceivable that you could put like a number in front of this and after it. So if you can only put, I don't know what, I don't know. I tend not to think that there are 10 different, that there would be 10 possibilities on this side. I'm sure there are 10 possibilities on this side. Okay. So we would be talking about 10 possible suspects. If we make this assumption, 10 possible suspects to be the Zodiac Killer, possibly more than that if there's a leading digit we can put over there. I don't know what the social security numbers consist of. Okay. In other words, the Zodiac signature phrase, please rush to editor, it converts to Michael O'Hara's social security number through 117322 through 8 of the digits. Okay. And then you're down to 10 people to choose from. And I would be willing to bet that Michael O'Hara is the only one who looks like the Zodiac Killer sketch, even though I look like the sketch and lots of males from that time. And even if one of the other 10 people looks like the Zodiac Killer sketch, we could probably eliminate that person. In other words, the Zodiac Killer signature phrase identifies Michael O'Hara. Okay, if you make the same assumptions that I'm making. Okay, if you don't make those assumptions, then you have to ask yourself, how is it that that the letter writer got to the point where he was writing "Please rush to editor" on those six envelopes, and doing it as consistently as he did, and in that strategic place? The first, and as I said, what I tend to believe is that you have the same. You would have this if we had the August 1969 letter. My guess is that, and it's a guess, but my guess is you would have the same configuration on that envelope. So it would actually be the first 7 letters, but it is certainly the 6 of the first 7 letters that the Zodiac Killer sent contains a signature phrase, which converts in a straightforward manner to Michael O'Hara's social security number. Okay. Do with that what you will, but anyway, that covers probably everything I wanted, because the solution to Z408 I don't think is particularly significant, except for what I pointed out about the first 4 words. Same thing with the solution to Z340, and the reason for that is that the actual cipher solution is secondary to other things that are going on in those ciphers. Okay, and maybe I will touch on some of those when I get to them. But this has been a video about primarily about the first major Zodiac mailing, which was in at the end of July in 1969, was received at the beginning of August in 1969. It included the cover letters, included the Z408 cipher. As I have pointed out, the 2 Vallejo crime events on Lake Herman Road in Blue Rock Springs Park were intended to be interchangeable, and that's why the events are listed in chronological order in the cover letters to Z408. But then when the August 1969 debut of the Zodiac letter is sent, that the order is reversed, and the July 4th, which is actually a July 5th shooting, is cited first, and then the Christmas event is cited, and this this is done to point out that in terms of the overall project, that those 2 events are essentially interchangeable. You have the drivers of the 2 cars, David Faraday and Darlene Farron, were both DFs. DF converts to 4-6. The overall idea behind the Zodiac project was 223. So it is all to make that point, and there are things that there are other things that Darlene Farron and David Faraday's names convert to, which I will, I guess, talk about in a future video. But I thought I should keep making videos until my voice vanishes, and then I will be silent for a couple of weeks until I get my injections, and in a week or so for the transition to take place. So anyway, it's almost 1 a.m. now here in Pittsburgh, so I will sign off for now, and I will come back, I guess, with more information. Having talked about Z408, I will then talk, I guess, whatever comes next in the sequence. I don't even know. See, I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. I don't plan. I don't write any of the notes down. I just do this from basically from memory, and I'm doing it pretty much as I did with the canonical murder events, basically in chronological order. But it's almost as if I'm a professor and you're coming into my classroom every other day or what have you, and it's it's called Zodiac Killer 101 or something like that. So, but anyway. Okay, that's the best I can do. My cat is sneezing over there. That's the best I can do for today, and I will, if my voice holds up, I will see you in another day or day. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Wednesday. Maybe I'll do a video tomorrow, and since I'm not doing a video. I'm not doing two videos with Ned on Thursday, so maybe I'll do one of my own videos with that might make more sense for both of us, to be honest. So, but anyway, I want to mention that once my voice goes, I will try to said this already, but to a couple of people, but I will try to put up a print version of Zodiac Killer Solved. For those of you, apparently there is greater demand for print copies of books than there is for Kindle copy. A lot of people don't like dealing with Kindle, and they want to get print versions. I just want to warn you ahead of time. I have at least one copy of Zodiac Killer Solved upstairs, but it is a very thick book. Okay, it's like one of those what do they call those things? The things to do in San Francisco. I mean, it basically looks like an almanac. If you remember those from your childhood, I don't think they have those anymore. But it's a thick paperback book. And it's very imposing looking. So as I said, my hope is that when I took the book down to make some changes into it and update it a little bit, a couple of details, and I took the book down, and when I tried to put it back up, the Kindle worked and the print version didn't. And by that time, I was already writing my novel, and I didn't want to be distracted by playing around with the Amazon platform. So I just never got around to putting the print version up. And I just thought, well, the ebook version is there. I mean, people can read that, but a lot of people just won't read ebooks. I think if I had realized that at the time, I would have put the print version back up, but as soon as my voice goes, that's what I'm going to do. But anyway, thanks to everyone for watching my video, and I will let you know. Let me see what it says. Oh, almost 2:30, so almost 2 hours and 30 minutes. So that's a long video. That's a long video. But anyway, thanks very much for watching this video, and I will probably post another, maybe tomorrow, or if I don't do that, I will do it on Thanksgiving. I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat turkeys or stuffing or any of that stuff. I will. Will have lots of time on Thursday to do stuff because and also my family is completely diversified geographically, so I won't be. I'll be seeing at least one of my siblings over the next on Friday, but not on Thursday. So, but anyway, I will have lots of time on Thursday, so I may make. It's possible I will do a video tomorrow and then do another video on Thursday. I guess we'll find out. But anyway, thanks very much for watching. And what is it saying? Oh, 2:30. Okay, perfect. 2.5 hours. Um, Thanks again for watching, and I will um, uh, try to keep putting out videos until my voice stops. And so we're going to. It's another little mystery that we're going to follow. So in any case, I will talk to you soon. Thanks very much.